The storyline is coming to the US Open, and there is one special statistic that is getting raised. Nobody has defended the US Open title since Roger Federer in 2008. The Swiss maestro, in fact, won 5 US Open titles in a row, establishing a new wave of dominance at Flushing Meadows during the 2000s. His run of 40 consecutive match wins in New York was ended by Juan Martín del Potro in the 2009 final. And since then, there have been many champions, notably Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic winning for titles each, but no one has gone back-to-back. So why is that? One reason is the motivation. Now, I know many would say, it's a Grand Slam at Flushing Meadows, why wouldn't players be motivated? I'm not saying it for everybody. Of course, the US Open is big. However, the big elite players, especially during the Big Three era, had their priorities straight. Nadal always had Roland Garros in mind. Federer, especially in the later stages of his career, was always focused on being a 100% for Wimbledon. Djokovic was dominant at the Australian Open, so the priorities were set for each of these guys. Hence, the US Open was less of a motivation for either of them because it was the last of the Grand Slams. Secondly, and this has become more of an issue now than it was 10 years ago, the schedule. And this issue becomes even more complicated during the Olympic season. The changes to the Masters 1000 schedule have made players brittle, and, as a result, they don't have enough time to work away from tournaments to build their bodies for Grand Slams. Now, look at the schedule during the summer. The only one-week Masters 1000 event is Monte Carlo. Ahead of it, Madrid and Rome are both 2-week events. If it is the Olympic season, there are the Olympic Games right after Roland Garros and Wimbledon, which extends to 3 weeks. Then, you have the Canadian Open and Cincinnati that have 2 weeks each. The 2-week stretch for Masters 1000 means that players can't afford to play both the events leading to the US Open, or they would be totally broken by the time US Open arrives. And this is the question for Jannik Sinner, considering he has won 5 Masters 1000 events to start the 2026 season. Does he go for the calendar year Golden Masters? Or does he prioritize the US Open by skipping one of either the Canadian Open or Cincinnati? But you can see how fatigued players look by the time US Open arrives. Djokovic and Alcaraz played the gold medal match at the 2024 Olympics. But despite skipping both the Canadian Open and Cincinnati, they lost in the third and second rounds of the US Open, respectively. So, there is not even a guarantee that by skipping one of either the Canadian Open and Cincinnati Open will make you fully recovered for the US Open. You saw that last year, in 2025, when Sinner retired from the Cincinnati Open final due to a heat issue, and had physical problems throughout his New York campaign. And these issues came at Roland Garros when players were coming from 2-week tournaments at Madrid and Rome. Sinner, alongside many of the top seeds, were eliminated by the early round. We might see that at the US Open as well. Hence, just like Zverev won his first Grand Slam title at Roland Garros this year, we might see a brand new Slam champion like we saw many times at the US Open in the past 15 years with Cilic in 2014, Thiem in 2020, and Medvedev in 2021. What do you think? Does Alcaraz end the curse this year? Leave your thoughts below, and we'll see you in the next one.